Thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to take one or two questions from the press, and then I think we have some regional journalists to talk to before I hope we can have a cup of coffee and say hello to some of you. Thank you for coming today. I think we've got James Mates from ITV.
Prime Minister, your strategy again today is to try and frighten voters about an Ed Miliband SNP government, but the polls are suggesting they're not scaring so easily. Are you going to have to rethink?
Well, we have a very clear strategy, which is to talk about the positive benefits of a Conservative government, and our manifesto is packed full of things that can turn the good news we've seen in our economy into a good life for people in our country. Talking about jobs, talking about tax cuts, talking about the homes that we're going to build. But there is a simple fact about this election, which has very much taken place in the last few weeks and months. And that simple fact is that all the experts predict Labour is going to be wiped out in Scotland. Now, that fact has a consequence. And we've been seeing that consequence played out on our television screens in the last few days. You've had the deputy leader of the SNP saying that unless they cancel Trident, they will hold up investment in defence in our country. What does that mean for workers here in the northwest building the Typhoon aircraft? What does it mean for workers in Barrow building our submarines? There are real consequences from this fact at the election that Labour cannot win without SNP support. And I just want everyone to be very clear before they vote that there's a simple choice. You can vote for a Conservative Party that will continue the long-term plan that's working, or you can put all that at risk, not only with Ed Miliband, who opposed every part of that plan, but also backed by the SNP, who would, I think, and we've set out very clearly, really damage our country and the way that it works. So I think it's really important everyone understands what is at stake at this election. The stakes, frankly, have just got much, much higher, and the prospects of an Ed Miliband SNP government, I think, frankly, are very frightening for the reasons that I've given. Let's have, I think we've got Chris Hope from the Telegraph, who proved that a Conservative audience is very polite to journalists, unlike some. Chris?
No booing here. Prime Minister, what would happen to the financial markets in the days and weeks after the formation of an SNP Labour government? Would interest rates go up? And just quickly, on the polls haven't budged much in the past 3 weeks for you. Do you take personal responsibility for this? Do you think it's your fault that they haven't gone any better?
Well, I take responsibility for everything in this campaign, for everything that happens in this country. I'm the Prime Minister and the leader of the Conservative Party. But you asked an important point about financial instability, and I'll ask the Chancellor to comment. But I think the point is this, that if you have a situation with a Labour SNP government, not a formal coalition, that's clear, they've ruled out a formal coalition, but they refuse to rule out getting into power on the back of the SNP. What you would then have, and Nicola Sturgeon spelled this out yesterday, you would have a ransom note, as it were, vote by vote, act by act, decision by decision, for 5 years of a parliament, 5 years of a government. And as I put it, if your government comes to a juddering halt, pretty soon you find your economy can come to a juddering halt, and when that happens, business is hit, jobs are hit, livelihoods are hit. That is what is at stake. As for what could happen in financial markets, yes, there would be, I believe, great instability, great uncertainty, because Britain would have a dysfunctional government. And the way to think about this is, we haven't in our recent history ever had a group of nationalists from one part of the country who don't want the rest of the country to succeed. They don't want the rest of the country to exist. We've never had that involved in the government of our country, and that is why it is such a chilling prospect. And people shouldn't mistake the fact that the SNP can make strong arguments and produce nice-looking documents and all the rest of it. They don't want the United Kingdom to exist. They don't come down to Westminster with a set of proposals to make our country stronger. They come down to Westminster with only one aim in mind, and that is to break up the United Kingdom. And it's not just the money that would be taken out of places like Crewe or other parts of the United Kingdom. It's also the fact this would breed a sense of resentment and disenchantment with our United Kingdom. And I speak as someone who's passionate about the United Kingdom. I don't want this to happen to our country, which is why this election has always been so important, but has just become even more important. Chancellor.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, the north of England, the northwest, benefits from the stability of a long-term economic plan that is creating jobs here, seeing investment come here, and has a plan for big infrastructure investments here. And we are setting out today our plan for working people in the northwest to show how we can build on that in the next 5 years and create 100,000 more jobs here by backing the businesses and the infrastructure that will bring those jobs. Now, that is at risk from this combination of the Ed Miliband-led Labour Party and the Scottish Nationalists. And it's a double risk. First of all, we know that Ed Miliband's plans involve more borrowing, more taxes, more spending. He has learnt none of the lessons from what went wrong 6 or 7 years ago when unemployment rose here in the north because Labour failed. So you'd have a bad Labour economic policy that would cost jobs and cut incomes here, combined with all this political instability that comes from an SNP arrangement where they hold the government hostage at every single vote. And it's that double combination that is particularly alarming. So you get the bad economic policy from Ed Miliband alongside the Scottish Nationalists, who also believe in more borrowing and more debt and more spending, but who, as I said, would bring real political instability. And that would clearly have an impact on the way people looked at the United Kingdom about whether they'd want to commit investment to the United Kingdom, whether a business here would want to expand and take on more people and create jobs here. Those things are all affected by sentiment. And if you think of what we've achieved over the last 5 years, the stability, the security, the sense that this is a great place to invest, I think all of that is at risk if you have Ed Miliband in Downing Street and you have the Scottish Nationalists holding him hostage at every vote.
I think we've got time for one or two more. Carol Walker from the BBC.
Thank you. Are you not concerned, though, that voters will be put off by what is seen as a very negative message warning about the dangers like this, effectively trying to scare voters south of the border?
Our message couldn't be more positive, which is that if you vote Conservative on the 7th of May, on the 8th of May, the work continues, creating jobs, cutting taxes, building homes, providing great schools for your children, security and dignity in retirement, building on the track record of the last 5 years. You can't have a more positive vision and message than that. But elections are a choice, and I really want people to understand the nature of the choice that we face, because the choice has just got far more harrowing. It was always a choice between continuing with a plan that's working or putting at risk with a Labour Party that has not learnt the lessons of the last 5 years, that opposed everything we did to turn this economy round, but now potentially backed by the SNP, who think the only thing that's wrong with Labour is that they're not committed to even more borrowing, even more spending, even more taxes, combined with the fact, which is now being shown in interview after interview, that the SNP would have a set of ransom demands. No investment in Britain's defence industries unless you get rid of Trident. No HS2 unless it starts in Scotland. This has only been happening over a period of 24 hours, and we've already had those chilling interventions that would fundamentally affect people's jobs and livelihoods in our country. And frankly, I would not be doing my duty as Prime Minister if I didn't lay out the choice that I see opening up at this election and explaining to people what the threat is and how we stop it, which is having a Conservative majority government.
Can I just also say something very specific about the north of England and the northwest? This is the first election that I can remember where you have one party setting out a really positive, specific vision for the north of England with our concept of the Northern Powerhouse, a clear plan of action which involves investment in transport, investment in communications, investment in science, in the universities here, the great NHS teaching hospitals here, to create jobs here. And that Northern Powerhouse vision has a real chance of changing the decades-long imbalance in our country's economy. The last couple of years, the North has grown faster than the South. I don't want that to be a one-off. I want that to be something where we really rebalance our economy. So we are not putting all of our bets again, as the last Labour government did, on the success of the City of London, almost 200 miles to the south. And we are seeing that working now, our approach. And that is on the ballot paper on the 7th of May.
Okay, any more? I think, is it Lucy from, yes.
Hi there, Lucy Fisher from The Times. With more than 900 migrants feared drowned in the Mediterranean in the past 24 hours, firstly, should we restart the maritime patrol for migrant boats? And secondly, Prime Minister, has your decision for the UK to intervene in Libya in 2011 directly increased the number of North African migrants trying to flee to Europe across the sea?
Well, first of all, let me say how tragic it is, the appalling loss of life that there's been. This has been a very dark day for Europe. It really is horrific, the scenes that we've all witnessed on our television screens, the loss of life. And we should put the blame squarely at the appalling human traffickers who are the ones managing and promoting and selling this trade in human life, this trade in human death, that we now need to do everything we can to try and stop. There's a vital meeting taking place in Luxembourg today of the EU foreign ministers, and I think it's important they get that work going of what more can be done. I believe what's necessary is a comprehensive approach. We've got to deal with the instability in the countries concerned. We've got to go after the human traffickers and the criminals that are running this trade. We've got to make sure, yes, there is an element of search and rescue, but that can only be one part of this. And we should use all the resources we have, including, for instance, our aid budget, which can play a role in trying to stabilise countries and try to stop people from travelling. In terms of where people are coming from, it's quite striking. They are coming from all over Africa and other parts of the Middle East. But I think the comprehensive approach, using everything that we've got, starting with this meeting today in Europe, is what is required. And Britain, of course, can play a role in helping to deliver all of these decisions. Can I thank you all very much indeed for coming? Can I thank the Chancellor? I think what he said about having a very clear plan for the northwest of our country, I don't think any party has done this before, bringing together the infrastructure investment, the skills investment, the devolution, the things that we can do to make sure we drive every part of our economy over the next 5 years is absolutely vital for the future of our whole country. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you.